Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hello, Daren. Welcome to the podcast. I'm sure my audience may not know you. So if you could give us a little bit of information about you. Who are you? What's going on?
Hey, Alicia. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah,
am
you're welcome.
Daren, and I am a life coach for divorce recovery and dating, all the things from like the initial divorce and those tough moments that you have, all the way up until finding your next partner. So I help people through that, but I became an expert at it because of the experience that I went through. I went through divorce back in 2020. We all know that year was just straight shit. But for a lot of us, we also not only through a pandemic, but we went through divorce. It ended up being fairly common and during that period. So a lot of us are coming out of those years single, and we don't know what the hell to do. Like, we're single parents and we're trying to figure it out on our own. So I also help people through co-parenting and communication with that, because we still have to be parents with that person that we were divorced with. So with our co-parent. Um, and I wrote a book actually, and we can go through all, like, the whole process from start to finish. But the book that I wrote was just a short memoir called The Husband's Diary, and that's why my Instagram handle is Husband's Diary with Daren. And I did that through a healing process, published it through Amazon, and shared it with the world. And that's how I really just let go of all my preconceived identities and attachments, and really owned the fact that I'm a single dad now, and this is how I can help people. And that, going through that transformation for a lot of people, is very, very difficult, because we lose our identity during a divorce. My identity, before my divorce, was I was a husband, and I was a corporate manager, and I was a father. So those three things I really attached to, and I lost all those things. Like, that's what I felt like. I wasn't a husband anymore. I lost my job, and I moved away from the kids, so I didn't feel like much of a father. So everything just wiped clean. Like, who the hell am I? And that's really where you can start to rebuild. When you feel like you have nothing, you can look at it as an opportunity to rebuild better than you've ever done. And that's what I help people do now.
Wow. I didn't know that you lost your job as well. Holy
Yeah.
smokes. Did you feel like it's 2020? Like, I'm literally like hitting rock bottom.
Oh, it was certainly rock bottom. The job loss occurred in mid 2019. I talk about it a little bit in my book. And I was a corporate manager for a railroad for 11 years, and I absolutely loved that position. It was my dream job, and and that was part of my marriage problems, that I was also married to a job. Okay, so that was my identity. I was a husband and a father, like I said. And when I lost that, things started to deteriorate, because I didn't know who the hell I was anymore. And we lived in the middle of nowhere, so finding another job was
Yeah.
really difficult for the amount that I was worth. Like, there were no jobs where I lived, and that's what ended up that I moved away from my kids about 90 minutes to Cleveland, Ohio, while during a pandemic, the kids are about, back home with my wife at the time, who had also, at the end of 2019, lost her sister. So it was like
Oh, wow.
2019 was the start for us. And it was just tragedy after tragedy, and then pandemic, and then divorce. So it was just like a whole string of tragedies that I mean, we didn't know what the hell to do. But the fact that you can survive that, and not only survive it, but thrive after it, gives so much hope to people. And that's what makes me excited now, is that I'm on the other side, and everything that I did through those dark times and through that rock bottom, like, I can share those techniques with people now. And that's what I'm really, really passionate about. I'm really So I do have a day job, but that's not my passion anymore. I'm working out of it, and I'm really having great success with mentoring and coaching people through these steps, because you're not alone. When you think you're alone, you're not alone. Come find us. Come find our coaches, and you're a coach too. You see it.
Yeah.
We're here for you. So, and building a team and community is very important through those dark times.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. So I have two things for you. So when you talk about like going through the dark times and you know that you're not alone, and I'm a coach too, and I see it, like I can see other stepmoms or step parents that have been where I've been. And I know that you see guys. Do you only do dads? Like, do you only coach dads?
No,
Do
actually,
women as
I've
well?
never booked a male client.
Really? That's
all
interesting.
all of my clients are female. And I
Wow.
think so. All you guys out there, like, come, like, you need help. Like, I didn't know where to go, and I wasn't comfortable talking about my divorce. The first time I said divorce, I wept. Like, I cried. It was just
Oh
terrible
yeah.
for me. And the fact that I had to say divorce and I was unemployed, I mean, that's my whole, like, that's everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there was a lot of shame involved in that period for me. And men, like, what do we do when we feel shame? We can handle it on ourselves. We do it ourselves. We hold it in, and that tends to come out as anger and frustration, and that's when you see men tend to treat people like, nasty. There's a lot of pent up anger. So my theory is, and guys, please come to me. The fact that vulnerability is so difficult for you to talk about, the difficult times that you're going through, means you have to do it, right? And
For
that's what
sure.
I'm here for. I think women are very much more open. When I was going through those dark times, I went to women myself instead of men for healing. So I hired a female life coach. I did a lot of yoga and met a few female mentors and coaches through that. Like, my business that I got started, I did it through a female mentor. So, like, all those things, I went to females for healing, which could be, that's cool too, right? I mean, guys, if you can't come to me, find a female mentor. Just work through those troubles. But I'm here for you, because, like, I've went through it, and I have no problem talking about feelings with dudes now.
Yeah, I think it's wild because what you say is accurate. I think that it's easier for women, like, oh, let's talk about like feelings and that's cool. But guys are like, I'm out, like, forget it. And so it's interesting that even you like went to a female to talk about your feelings, because there's still, to a degree, that stigma of like man to man, like I don't want to open up and like pour my heart out and be a puddle on your floor, because what are you going to think of me, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that kind of why you went to a female, or can you tell?
Yeah, that is. And actually, my counselors were men. I had two therapists that were
You
men, and
got
I'm
all the
glad
help.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
do it all. Like I said, build that community, have a team, and don't be ashamed of hiring help. But my therapists were men, and there was more accountability there on the
Mm-hmm.
on the male side.
That's good.
Like, men are more prone to call you out on your bullshit, right? And that's what my therapist was doing too. He would give me tools to help me get through these dark times, which I share with you now. And he also called me out on a few things, like, "Hey, dude, you're right." Like, and one thing was, I remember this question when I was in a session, and it just hit me. I probably cried for days. He goes, "Shouldn't your partner make you a better person?" I was like, "Oh shit." It's like, she's not making me. She's not supporting me, and I still get teary eyed thinking about it. She's not supporting me. We're not a team. All these things. And that really opened my eyes, where he's like, and we weren't, we hadn't filed for divorce yet. We were still going, like, we didn't know what to do. And that's when I realized, like, this is going towards divorce, because there's no support from her. Like, there's no love, there's no, and man, that was that was very powerful. So there's a tool that men can have, and women do it too, but I think man to man is a lot more effective when you're calling out on each other's bullshit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think based on my unscientific research, like the men that I've talked to prefer to talk like accountability wise, like man to man, right? Like you're in the gym because I know you work out. Like it's a competition, kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, I need to like be better, I need to do all of these things. And yeah, I'm still like chewing on this, like even though you're geared for your whole thing is geared for men, your clients are female, like that still like blows my mind. Like I'm still like,
Doesn't it?
yeah, it
Yeah.
does. I'm like, wow. I mean, if I sit and think about it, no, because it's a lot harder to get men to like come and like ask for help. But I see it too, like as a stepmom coach, like I can coach stepmoms and stepdads, but all of my clients have been stepmoms because I think it's just harder for men to ask for help. But I get DMs from people on the regular, and you know what I'm talking about because I can see your smile. Like you're like, I can help you. Like we can set up coaching. You can join my membership. I can help you. But it's just taking that step of being like, hey, Daren, I need help. Or hey, Alicia, I need help. Like innately, like I need help. Like I'm struggling, right? Like I'm barely keeping my head above the water. But actually coming out to somebody and saying, I need help. Like that's the scary thing.
So
And
scary.
so scary. And people tend to think that it's just easier to like, I'll just figure it out because you don't understand my situation. I'll just like make do, or I'll just go through the motions. And then, like 5 years down the road, they come back and they're like, hey, can you coach me? Can you help me out? And absolutely. 100%. Yes. And, I can't help but think like 5 years ago, like you could be already through all of this, or I could have given you like the tools that you were talking about that you got from your counselors or therapists. Like I could give you tools to help you right now, today, to not live the next 5 years through all of this anguish or this bullshit that you're just like, I went out. Like I don't know how much of my story but my very first year of marriage, I spent like basically bashing my head against the wall. Like, what did I sign up for? Like, I did not sign up for this. Like, literally Googling, like, how do I get divorced in Michigan? I found out that there was like a 6-month cooling off period if you had kids. Well, we didn't have kids. So I was like, I could be out. Like, this would be great. But like, I'm crazy about my husband. Like, he's awesome. I could do without the first few years of our marriage. Having said that, though, if I didn't have that part of it, I wouldn't have what I have now, and I wouldn't have like the ease of it. But I, like you, went and got all the help because it's crazy. I was very stubborn in the sense that like, I'll just figure this out. Like I've always figured everything out. Like I'm going to figure this out too. Like it's going to be okay. But I also wasn't necessarily willing to own like my part of it. And so going and getting help, we had a female marriage counselor, and she was like, hey, so let me talk to you about the things that you're doing that are not helping. And I respond well to that. Like I'm pretty direct. So if somebody's pretty direct back to me and like can call me out, like I'm here for it. Like I want that part of it because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, that's how you get better. But yeah, that's really scary because then you actually like have to face the music and you're like, shit, like it's not everyone else all of the time. Like there's my part of it too. Yeah, so getting help is really, really scary.
Yeah, it sure is. But and here's the thing, like you talk about that period of a few years where maybe you were afraid to ask for help, or your clients or whoever. That was maybe the lesson that they needed. Like sometimes we get stuck in our
Mhm.
routines and our habits that maybe served a purpose a while ago, but as you grow, as you age, as things change, as kids coming, those sorts of things, those habits don't serve you anymore, and you don't know what you don't know. Okay. And if you're stuck in that period, maybe that is the wake up call. That's the lesson that you need. Everything's a lesson now. I remember, going like during the divorce and during the job loss and moving away from the kids and all these things that I had that just went on, I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, this isn't, I don't deserve this, you know, all these things. And there was a lot of anger, so many terrible emotions running through me. Um, but through that period and the year or two after, I realized that was a lesson that I needed. I needed to experience that marriage that wasn't nurturing in order to realize that um, I'm capable of more. I'm capable of like unimaginable love, like things that I've never even dreamed of. If I didn't experience a marriage that wasn't successful. And it was a successful lesson, but the marriage ended, right? I needed that lesson because that marriage is something that I knew maybe from when I was a child too. I mean, those are the kinds of relationships that I witnessed as a child, and I was familiar with it, so I just went into it. Like I thought that's what marriage is. Um, so that was a wake up call and a lesson that I needed. And it took me maybe a year to get over that fact and to really reflect on why I did that. And a lot of people need that reflection time. And that's what we're here for, right? So we talk about, you know, we reflect on those relationships in the past and we analyze them and say, hey, this didn't work. What, you know, like you said, what did you contribute to it, because that's the only thing that you can control, and what can you contribute to future relationships moving forward. And that's the really exciting part, because we are all capable of amazing things when we learn more and when we're open to feedback. You know, it could be tough feedback, but when we continue to grow like that, like, you won't recognize yourself in a year or 2 years. Like, holy shit, this is a new me and this is exciting. Like, thank you, coach. Thank you, therapist. Thank you, friends. Like, thank you, God. It's all there for a purpose and it's all there for us. You know, don't let your suffering just be suffering. Turn your suffering into a purpose.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like that's obviously that's what we've done, right? Like I suffered for a really long time. Obviously you did too. But then now, like you talked earlier about like being on the other side of it. And even though we're on the other side of it, there are still times where you're just like, damn, like I didn't see this coming. Like what happened, right? Like there's still times that you have to like learn. But when you are talking about the change, I think that change is hard, change is scary. And I know that for stepmoms that I coach, because I went through this too, and maybe you did as well, I would make changes, but I wanted to do everything all at once. Well, that always works, right? Like let's just change everything, and none of it works. And so then you're like, well, none of it worked. I did all these changes. None of it worked because I didn't give it time. And I always say, like, rather than trying to do everything all at once, pick one thing to change, one small thing to change. And once you master that, then move on to the next thing. And I think people, because I did too, get caught up in this. I need to change everything like yesterday, and I need to have everything fixed like yesterday. And that's the hardest thing to do as somebody that's going through that dark time, to just trust the process. It's going to be okay. You've got to keep doing the work. And sometimes it is going to be one step forward and 30 steps back, or it feels like that because you don't necessarily see like the fruit of your labor yet. And it does take time, and you have to do the changes, like as scary as it is and as insignificant as they may seem. It's those small things that build up to like that massive change. It's not like just one day and then all of a sudden everything's perfect. Every change, like there's something that comes from it. But then also, I talk a lot about boundaries. So if you set a boundary, it's hard for you to like set and then maintain it. But then it's also a bit of a challenge for everyone else, because now they're operating with this new person, and they're learning how they can or can't interact with you or talk to you or push you around or whatever. So there's so many dynamics that I'm just like, you might be holding on to the coattails, but just hold on, like hold on super tight. Like you're going to get there. I promise. Just trust me on this. Do
Yeah,
you see that?
yeah, I get it. And you mentioned like, if you do the work, but there are times where you don't feel like doing the work, and you
100%.
might even fall off the horse and just like
Yep.
revert back to old you, right?
100.
But
That's easy. That's so
yeah,
easy.
yeah, but and we've all done it. But
Yep.
being aware of it and looking at it like, okay, I'm sneaking back into my old patterns. Why am I doing this? And how do I get out of it? And you do that through, coaching and talking to people, but you can also do it on your own. Like just
Yeah.
think about like, okay, I did this, and I spoke to my co-parent. I went across the line, and did and talked more about. So one boundary that I help people on co-parenting is only really focus on the kids, right? Everything else is bullshit, right? Only focus on the kids. If there's any other communication that comes outside of the kids' health and wellness, ignore it, right? But they know how to poke you too. So if you get into those arguments and those text messages and all the bullshit, that's falling off the horse. Okay. And how do you feel after that? Think about, and you can do it in a journal or you can do it in your mind, however you want to do it. Like, okay, I fell off the horse. I got into an argument over text message with my co-parent. Um, Analyze like why it happened, how you felt after it. And that's more powerful for me. I don't know about you or the listeners, but I feel like shit after I get into an argument or after I fall off the horse.
100%.
And that's what motivates me to keep going. I remember the feeling it gives me. That's one thing, and that's why I work out. I remember after a workout, I feel amazing, so I continue to do it.
Even
And
though
I
you didn't want to go in
remember,
the first place.
oh, I don't want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. It's
Yeah.
terrible. But
Yeah.
when I'm done with it, it's 6:30. Like I feel great, and I'm ready to
Always.
start the day, like every day. Um, and the same thing goes for negative experiences. So when you get into that argument about your co-parent that had nothing to do with the kids, remember how that felt, so that next time something pops up, you can let it go and ignore it and only focus on the kids. So falling off the horse is part of the process too. It's important that you learn those lessons when you're doing it.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. But you have to have like that self-awareness to be like, shit, like I just did this. And then for me, I would berate myself. Like, how could you be so stupid? Like you're doing this work and you're still doing that. So yeah, I love that you actually say it's part of the process. You too are still learning, right? Like you have to train an old dog new tricks. Like you have to train yourself to like rethink how you are working through everything. And everything is cyclical. Like, you know that it's going to come back. You know that there's going to be some sort of text. But like you said, anything outside of the kids is just complete BS. But it's getting to that point where you can just say, I don't care if they call me names. It doesn't matter. Their opinion of me doesn't matter. Whatever's going on with you and your own partner, not including the ex, like it's going to be okay. But I personally, like you said, can only control myself. So I have to work on taking deep breaths, being okay with whatever is happening. That doesn't mean you accept it. And I think that's where it kind of gets into like a gray area because people are like, oh, well, if you're okay with it, then that means that you accept it. And that means that you basically condone it. Like, it doesn't mean that I condone it. Accepting it means that, okay, there's, as a stepmom or as a step parent, there's always going to be some sort of situation, or there's going to be some sort of like underlying simmering emotions of whatever, like between me and the ex, between my partner and the ex, like whatever the situation, between me and the kids, the in-laws, whoever, whatever. But it's like, okay, at any time something's going to blow up. But if you're living your life thinking anytime is going to blow up, you're always looking for it. I know, because I did it. Like I did it for years. And it's such a terrible way to feel because you're always on pins and needles and there's always anxiety. But you're like, if I can control myself and I can be confident or fake it until I make it, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to die. I've survived 100% of my worst days. I'm still here. I might be like battered and bruised, but I'm still here. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, and that builds so much confidence, which is so important in rebuilding yourself, and meeting new people and moving on with your life. Is That's what I teach a lot in my workshop, is confidence building. When you look back at all those lessons that you went through and all those struggles that you went through, and actually learn from them and grew from them and are implementing them in your daily life now, that gives you so much confidence. That gives you confidence when you're parenting alone. That gives you confidence when you're putting yourself out there in the dating world. That gives you confidence to try something new and exciting that you never would have
Yeah.
tried before. That's so exciting. Yeah.
It's more than just like your role as a step parent or a divorced dad or a divorced mom or whatever, but that confidence like bleeds into everything, which is awesome to see. So you talked about like putting yourself out there and dating. Your reels about dating like make me laugh so hard. So can we talk about that? Like as a divorced dad that went through hell and back, what is it like dating as a divorced dad?
It's exciting.
It is okay,
It
good. I love that
it's
you say that.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love your
I
outlook.
have
Like, yeah,
so see, and that's another thing that I teach people, is that dating is about your own perspective, right?
for sure.
You can only control, your own thoughts and your own perspective and your own which eventually, control your feelings about it. So I'm excited to date because I have an opportunity to meet new amazing people, right? But there's a lot of people that are kind of holding back from dating because and this is a culture of dating right now. It's like, oh, it's miserable, there's no one good out there. Well, I think there's a lot of people that haven't done the work, okay?
For sure.
And when you have done the work of healing and getting over, I mean, you're not perfect by any means, but you can learn from those lessons. You can spot the ones that need to do more work a lot quicker, and that gives you a lot more confidence in the dating world. Now, disclaimer about my dating reels is they aren't necessarily factual. So there's a lot of fiction involved in them. I read, I Google, dating horror dating stories, those
Oh my
sorts of
gosh.
stuff. So
That's
that's
really
how,
clever. Yeah,
yeah, that's how I write content, because I think it's funny too, and to have a sense of humor about
for
a
sure.
date. I really haven't had a failure on a date. Because I still look at them as lessons. Okay. I'd go out on one date with someone that I wouldn't date, learning more about them. And I'd be open and honest about it. Hey, I don't see this moving forward. And I'd think about like where I could improve, to attract the right person. Right. Now, when it comes to dating apps, I mean, they work, but what I warn people about is everyone on dating apps has one thing in common, and it's the fact that everyone wants to date. That's it. Okay.
Mm,
So that's a really wide
value.
net, and you
Yeah,
don't know what you're getting yourself into. Everyone just wants to date, and you don't really know what's going on. But where you're going to find your people and eventually your person is by pursuing your passions. So I like to learn new things. I like to work out. I like to be active. Those are the things I'm going to do to surround myself with the people that I want to be around.
for
And
sure.
that person, I'm confident, will show up wherever I am, because everything I do is something that I'm passionate about. When I'm a single dad, with my kids on the weekends or whatever, I'm passionate about, going out and playing with them. So I know we'll go to places that, whether I meet people or not, there's similar like-minded people that share the same passions, no matter what we do. I take the kids to the gym too. So the most important thing is, don't put all your eggs on the dating apps, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to find someone there that has the same interests, the same passions, and those sorts of things. Whereas if you just live your life according to your passions, people start to show up, and that's where your energy is high, your vibrations are high, you're feeling good, you're feeling confident, and you're that's where your person could be. That's where your person is more likely to be. So, dating is, as a single dad, I own it. Like
I love
I'll
it. I
talk about
own
my,
it. I love it.
I love talking about my kids. I love talking about my daughter is 8. My son is 5. Love him so much. We laugh. We have a lot of fun. So it's fun to to tell stories about those kids. And it's also, as a single dad, like I don't have all the answers. So it's also really, it can be difficult and really vulnerable to talk about being a dad because I'm only like half of the parenting relationship. And my co parent has different skills that I do. So, what's cool about owning the fact that you're a single parent is that you can talk about parenting and gain their perspective on circumstances or situations when it comes to parenting during the date or during other conversations
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So that's a great conversation topic on a date, like talking about
Oh,
being a parent.
that's interesting. Yeah. I would never have thought that, but yeah, that's really interesting. So, how long have you been divorced now?
Oh, it's
2 years,
almost
3 years,
2 years. Almost 2 years.
almost
Yeah.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about what it's like not having your kids.
Oh man.
I know that's
Well,
kind of a heavy topic, but
it is. Yeah, it's a good one though. So I'm working towards time freedom. That is the thing that motivates me. Time freedoms to have more time with my kids. So right now, my kids live 2 hours away from me, and if in order for me to go to their events during the school or whatever, I take off work and drive 2 hours, spend some time with them, and then drive home. So it's difficult. Now, the things that I do without them, I'm busy as hell because I have a day job and this and a coaching opportunity. I make content and all these sorts of different things. So the things that I do keep me occupied. They're the things that I'm passionate about, and I know they're going to free me eventually to spend more time with my kids as they get older. So and when I don't have the kids, it's an opportunity to date. So there we go.
yeah. So when because I think that as stepmoms, like we really struggle, like the first holidays that my husband didn't have the kids, like I remember dating and being like, hey, like I'm here, like what am I, chopped liver? Like, do you not care that I'm here? But it's not the same as him having the kids in the house or us having the kids around. And for me, I felt like finally, like I can breathe, right? I felt like I was on pins and needles. Like I'm gonna start sweating just like thinking about like my early years. Like I felt like everything I said, everything I did, what I wore, how I acted, what I got the kids as gifts or whatever, everything was reported back. And so when they left, I was like, yes, like it's finally just the two of us. This is gonna be great. And he was sad about it. Now I can understand. Like at the time, I was like, I could not wait to just like have it just be us. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. Like full disclosure, like this is kind of hilarious, but not. So our daughter was born in 2019. Like I know it was a bad year for you, but
No, that's okay.
so
Congrats.
thanks. 2018, that Christmas, I like had a full on like sobbing, like ugly cry. Like so upstairs we've got for Christmas, we've got like a family tree and it was ornaments from like his previous life. And I was so like annoyed by it that I had said early on, like, we're going to have like a Mr. and Mrs. tree downstairs and it's just going to be ours. And it's like ornaments from like places we've been because we've traveled quite a bit. And we were downstairs having like just our Christmas. And I just started crying. And he was like, what is wrong with you? Like, it's just us. Like, we just had Christmas. Like, what's happening? And I'm like, this is going to be the last Christmas ever. We're just going to be you and I, because our daughter was coming in that March, the
Yeah.
following March.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. But I was like, I'm always going to have to share you, So then there was like that whole thing. But for stepmoms, like, it's really hard for them, like, because now I get it, like, to understand why their husband, their partner is upset that the kids are gone. I mean, like I said, now I can get it. But do you have any tips, ideas, strategies as far as like supporting their partner through not having them on a holiday, whether it's a birthday, Father's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, Ramadan, whatever?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was knowing their love language, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, if you haven't read the love language book, read it.
So
But
good.
know their love language, and just hit it hard, right? Whether it's affirmations or gift giving or just time or touch, whatever. What know their love language and use it. But also, if you're feeling sad or lonely that the kids are gone, be able to communicate that, right? Be able to tell how you're feeling, and maybe a simple walk that could be quality time and
Okay.
touch would be fine. I know so I'm working on like some sort of mind thing that I'm going on. I have these thought loops where I just don't feel like talking to someone. Like I just want to play these negative thought loops in my brain and work them out myself. And
How's
it's
that going?
exhausting. Oh my God, it's exhausting. I remember like yesterday, I just felt like crap, and there was no reason for it. I was playing my own stories in my head. But the minute I got on the phone to talk to someone about not any, like some of it was about that, like it was like maybe a 3 minute long, like, hey, this is what's going on, blah blah blah. And it was about my kids, actually, that was this negative thought loop, my kids and my co-parent. As soon as I got it out for like 3 minutes talking to a really good friend about it, like I was like, okay, I can, okay,
We're good.
why was I afraid to talk about that, right? Like, because I'm fine now,
Yeah.
right? I went to bed happy, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore. But the thing with that was that conversation also, there were some love languages in there. There were some affirmations. My love language is positive affirmations. So there were some affirmations thrown at me. I was like, hey, yeah, okay, all right, cool, I feel good. So know the love language, but don't be afraid to talk about how you feel. I know, that was probably the masculine thing for me to do during the day, is keep playing those thought loops, like I'm going to figure it out myself, I'm going to be resilient through it, and like it'll just go away. No, you got to talk to it, so talk about it. And that's really really important, if you're feeling, because I think it's a loneliness feeling,
For sure.
and maybe an identity thing as well for me, because if you're a father and your kids aren't around, like, are you really a father, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That was something that I struggled with for a long time. Like, I'm a dad, but am I really a dad if the
Yeah,
kids
because
aren't
where are your
around?
kids?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that hurts, right? It really
Yeah.
hurts. But working through those thoughts with coaches, therapists, friends, so important to be able to communicate how you're feeling, and why you're feeling it. And you learn to, as it might be awkward at first, and you learn, like, that was a lesson, right? As soon as I talked about it with someone, I felt good. I remember that feeling. All right, I'm going to be more likely to talk about it with that person now. So it's really cool how you can get better at communication, because you need to work through some pain.
Yeah. I agree with you about talking about it. What I do is I just say, how can I support you? What does that look like? Because
Love that question.
what
Love it.
support looks like for me is totally different than what it's going to look like for you or the next person or my partner or whatever. It's going to look totally different. And so I can show up in how I think that it's going to be helpful, but I might actually not be helping at all. I might be making it worse. And to be honest, I probably was making it worse, because here I'm like, yay, it's just ours. And he was like, I didn't say this, but he's like, I just want you to hold space for me struggling right now. Like, I want you to hold space, to be like that soft landing place. I talk about this a bit. Be that soft landing place where I can come and be like, hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm really struggling right now. And here's why. And just talking through it. Like you said, just talking through it. And sometimes I'm way better at this now. This is going to be really shocking for you. I'm way better at this now. But sometimes it was hard for me to like keep my mouth shut and not say anything. And sometimes all people want is to talk about it. And you don't have to fix it, because I can't fix it, right? I can't break something. I mean, I can't fix something I didn't break. But And I say this to stepmoms too, like if something is going on that you don't like, it's okay for you to go to your partner and say, hey, Daren, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you to listen. Great. I can take off my like fixing helmet and just listen. Or I don't need you to do anything about this. Like I just need to vent. It's going to be okay. Like just ask. Like that's what I do. Ask. But I like your tips as well. Like learn their love languages. That is so good. Like that's such a, yeah. Mine is physical touch and like quality time. But I like
Mm-hmm.
your shirt.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I learned recently I had a second one. It was physical touch. So
yeah.
yeah, and that's something I learned after my marriage ended, that I realized that I met a woman that just touched me. I was like, holy shit, like that's it. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
it like, yeah, I get it. I need you to touch me. I mean, that's one of the things that I would say if I was struggling. I mean, affirmation is number one, like, hey, you're a good dad, you're doing all these things, you're working hard, and it's coming to you. But then physical touch is important too. And like, I wish I knew that question, how can I support you, when I was married. I did not know that question. And it exhausted me because I didn't know how to support my wife. I wanted to. I really, really wanted to support my wife, but I didn't know how to. So I'd go do things like, do the dishes or clean the kitchen or do the laundry or cut the grass or, service the pool or clean her car,
Or
do all
clean the
these
garage.
things. Yeah, clean the garage. All these different things that I thought was serving my wife, but she didn't give a shit about any of it. And I never asked her, how could I support you? And now I ask that question often. It's so important. I ask that question. It's a vetting question for dating, and I'll explain more on that. But to my close friends, I ask that question often because I want to be there for them
Yeah.
in how they need me, right? That's how I want to show up. And when I'm dating, when I'm just meeting someone, um, I let's see, when I'm just meeting someone, like on a first date, like, okay, you know, maybe she's interested in all these things. How can I support you? And a lot of the times I get the answer, well, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. Okay, all right. So and then I don't get an answer right away. But over the next few days or weeks or so, I'll learn how to support that person. And I also learned that if that person doesn't need support from me, they don't need me. That's another, like, okay, I'm not going to date this person anymore because they don't need me. And what I've noticed during my coaching and dating is that a lot of women have been doing it on their own for so long, that they're heavily in their masculine, and letting down into their feminine energy has been very vulnerable for them.
And scary.
So yeah, in order to be able to receive, support from a man is uncomfortable, right?
It's a pride thing for sure.
Yeah, all these things that women are doing on their own right now, raising kids, having a business, working a job, getting the kids to bed, getting kids up, all these things. I mean, that's in your masculine energy right there. You're constantly in that energy, and when you meet someone that really wants to serve you, it could be uncomfortable. So that question has become so important to me over the past year or so, because I learned so much from that question. I would learn whether the relationship's going to move forward. I learn whether the relationship's going to end. I learn how that person needs me, and how I can show up for that person. So that if there's one thing you get from this podcast, ask that question:
Yeah.
how can I
It's
support you?
it's so telling because yeah, like you said, you were basically bashing your head against the wall trying to do all of these things for your wife and none of it mattered because you weren't speaking her language. Literally, like we're not speaking her language. Like it didn't matter.
No, no.
Okay, so with dating, do you have like hard and fast rules or like soft rules about like introducing them to your kids?
No, there's soft rules. Okay. I get to know the person first. And when I do introduce the kids, it's in a public location. So it's at the playground or at the gym, something like that, where
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of other people around. The kids get to play together. We get to talk, we get to observe, all these things. And then, so I've never gotten to the point after my marriage where I've moved kids together. Now that would be a really big step for me. And I just haven't got there yet. Now, I recommend the public setting at first,
Yeah.
early in the dating, and there's no time frame. It's been a few weeks, maybe a month. You can start introducing the kids and letting them play together. But when you're in a public setting, like a playground or something, there's a lot less attachment than underneath the same roof.
For
Okay,
sure.
like they might ask, like, hey, where's Billy? Like, I haven't seen Billy in a while. Like, oh, we don't hang out anymore, but we've got, other friends, those sorts of things. But when you get, under the same roof and playing together, it could be, they start to build an attachment. So I haven't got to that point yet. Early in the dating process, though, I've had, success in introducing the kids in a public setting. I mean, the kids, and what's cool about kids is that they are so innocent. They get along so well with anyone,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun. So I haven't really had any horror stories introducing kids either. It's all been great. It's all been good news. Every once in a while, my daughter will ask me about someone that she met, last year, and said, "Oh, we don't hang out anymore, but we'll go do this instead." So those sorts of things, and it's easier for them when they get to meet new people too, and it's a lot easier for them when they're not as attached.
And I love like the straightforwardness of kids. Like they just, whatever you say, they're like, cool. Like it's not like, well, why don't you guys hang out anymore? Well, what's going
Right.
on? Right. Like they're not like into it. Like, well, what happened? They don't
Yeah.
care. Like, because you said your kids are 8 and 5. Like they're so young that they're just like, all right, cool. Can we have another friend? Like, can we get new people to hang out with?
Yeah. Yeah. We get new people. So, and they get really excited about that.
Yeah, I like that you do the public introduction though, like a public place, because there's so much less pressure on you or, this new person. And you said kids, so I'm guessing that this new person typically has kids, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think most of the people I've dated have had kids. So, yep.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're in a public area, they're so distracted by like the playground or the water park or, like a splash pad type thing or, running in this soccer field or whatever the case may be, that it's not like, wait,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Yeah.
I know.
Are you guys, wait, did you guys bring us together intentionally?
Right. 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 Right.
Do you
No, that's
feel,
totally true.
do you feel like things that you say or do are repeated back to your ex-wife?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a report I'm sure that she gets about what I'm doing. So yeah, and I'm not worried about it. What happens when the kids are with me, she trusts and I trust her. So there's no that I don't hide anything. I don't tell my kids not to say anything about that sort of stuff either. I think that puts them in a bad position, like
Absolutely.
hiding things from their co-parent. No, and I don't ask the kids what their co-parent is doing or who they're hanging out with either. That don't do that. They're not little spies for you. They're children.
Don't put
And
them
if
in the
they,
middle.
yeah, don't put them in the middle. But and you know what? Like they will tell you what's important to them. Um, and you don't even have to ask, and I don't even go in depth. If mommy has a new friend, I'm like, okay, that's cool, whatever. Like, do you like them? Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, that's it. All right.
Yeah.
That's it, and then we move on. So yeah, just make sure you don't use them as little spies or reporters. Like, they'll say whatever they want to say. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm confident in the decisions I'm making, and I'm confident in my co-parents' parenting skills. So I don't have anything to worry about.
I love that. And I think it comes from the confidence because you've done the work and you're like, I'm good. Like I'm solid. Like I'm good.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
it.
love that. Is your Do you want to talk about like your co-parenting situation? Like, is it pretty good? It sounds like it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it's pretty good. We plan a vacation together every year. We're going to Florida in July,
Oh.
so that's pretty exciting. But that's all it is. It's just co-parenting. And if we didn't have kids together, I wouldn't speak to her at all. Like that's just how it is. So the relationship is essentially strictly business now. The business of co-parenting, the facts of co-parenting, and it's because I've set boundaries that I don't get in those traps and those arguments and those when I feel myself when I feel my energy start to get into what am I into anxiety about the conversation. It's when I can put the phone down and walk away and sleep on it and talk later about co-parenting. So now that I have that ability and that skill to set the boundaries with the co-parent, and that's what I help people do. It's just a co-parenting relationship. That's it.
I love that you said that. Like, if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't talk to her. Like, period.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's just like a business because in my early years, it doesn't bother me now. Actually, like, I'm the only one that, well, I shouldn't say the only one, but I do 99.9999999% of the communication with the other house. Like, after
Hmm.
my stepson graduated, she and I decided, actually, she asked, is it okay if I just text you, like, mom to mom? And I was like, totally cool. Like, I was a full-time stepmom, so it was
Cool. Yeah.
mostly her and I like communicating anyway. Um, but in my early years, like it used to drive me insane, like the amount of communication that was back and forth about whatever. And I remember being in our kitchen and like one of my shiniest moments, like rage screaming at my husband about how much I hated it. And he was like, I don't like it either.
Yeah.
And that switched it for me. And I was like, what? And he's like, I don't like having to communicate like this either. This isn't fun for me. Where in
Hmm.
my mind, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, well, he enjoys it because he's over there like happily, like, oh, yeah, did it. No, he's not. He's like, I have to do it. I don't enjoy it, but I do have to do it. And I was like, oh,
Right.
so you don't like this either. So we are on the same team. Like, this is so crazy. And he was like, yeah, they're my kids. Like, I have to do this. But
Yeah.
so
It's
that's
truth.
yeah, so that's an interesting concept that you too also aren't like, oh, I can't wait to do it.
No, no. And there's and that's the habit, from years of marriage that you have to break, where you
Yeah,
think you have to talk to this person, you think you have to defend yourself, you think you have to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
explain yourself. You don't have to do that anymore. Like
yeah.
that's over. There's no other, explanations that you need to give if it doesn't regard the health or wellness of your kids. So, um, and that can be difficult because you've been married for years, prior.
Yeah.
And they know how to poke you.
Yeah.
Okay. Like they may not do it intentionally, but the pokings are coming. But it's how you handle it. And it's when you realize like, okay, that I'm being poked now, I'm going to put the phone down and walk away instead of engage. That's when you've really grown out of that relationship and you're ready to succeed, I think.
Okay, so speaking of succeeding, talk to me a little bit about your book. Like how all of it, like how did that come out? Like all of it.
Yeah, well, another part of the healing process is journaling for me.
Ah,
So I journaled for during the divorce, wrote down all these things and just reflected on my marriage and all the circumstances in my marriage and everything leading up to the divorce and through the divorce and those sorts of things. So I journaled all of that stuff. And it was something my therapist prescribed to me, and journaling was very healing for me. I got it out. I experienced emotions, sadness, grief, um, anger, all these things as I was writing. So, and once it was down on paper, it was out of me. I still had some feelings to work through, but I realized like I told people my circumstances, they were very intrigued about it, and I saw the look in their face. They want to know more, but it's hard to ask more. Like they want to know
yeah.
like how everything went down, not just because they're nosy. I think people are just curious in general. I think people don't want it to happen to them. Um, so how can they learn from it? And I realized, okay, I can teach people some things about this. So I put it into a Word document and, published. I had about 200 pages. I only
Whoa.
published about 25 of them in a
Okay.
book called The Husband's Diary on Amazon. And I did that last year. So look that up on Amazon. It's like a rough draft that I put out to the world about the circumstances leading into my divorce. So,
Were you nervous about publishing it?
oh, absolutely. And that's where one of my female mentors came in. She said, Daren, you have this. Like, you're sitting on it. Why are you sitting on it? Just
It's
put something
vulnerable.
out
It's
there.
scary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I said. I said, I'm nervous. I'm scared. I don't want to do it. She's like, that's exactly why you should fucking do it. I was
Yeah,
like,
right?
okay.
If you're
I
not
said,
scared, you're not
okay.
living, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So, she certainly influenced me to publish that book, and I did it, and it's out there. And once it was out there, it was fine. Like, there was nothing, there's nothing.
it's
It
hitting
wasn't
publish
that
though.
bad. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
what's cool about it is you can get to know me a little bit. You can get to know the old me, before, before you book me coaching, or before you get to know me on Instagram or any of those things. You get to see what kind of person I was 4 years ago, and it's kind of unrecognizable.
Right. Yeah. So that's interesting. What is the biggest like change or so there's the old you and then there's the new you. Like what's the biggest difference, would you say? If
Oh
you had
my
to pick one
gosh.
thing, like what's the first thing that came
I
to your mind?
I'm the I am capable of the greatest love that I've never imagined, right? I experience joy every day. And here's another story that got me there. Um, I joy cry every day, and I've never done that before. Like, there's
Right.
the sun's out, I'll just be so happy I'll start crying, right? I'll watch the kids playing, and I'll be so happy and grateful that I have that opportunity with them. And then the people that I've met after my marriage and just the relationships that I've built have just been so beautiful. Like, I'm starting to joy cry now thinking about it. Um, but I'll tell you, there's another
You can cry
tip.
here. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was intense. See, there's my daily joy cry.
Perfect.
Maybe I'll do another one later. We'll see.
Okay.
So, but there's another thing that I recommend to people is that I was stuck at the end of, what year was it? 2020. No, the beginning of 22. So over a year ago, I was stuck in January. I was in a depression, which I had never experienced before, until I got divorced. I didn't understand depression until I experienced what I experienced. And a lot of loaded thoughts came into there, especially when you lose your identity.
Mhm.
Like, what, I have no purpose. Like, why am I still alive? Those sorts of things. So I
Mhm.
was in depression, and it was tough waking out of bed. Even if I'd go work out, I wouldn't feel good. And I read this book called The Emotion Code, and I was on antidepressants at the time too. That's important later. And the book called The Emotion Code mentioned acupuncture as a healing tool to regulate your emotions. And I had realized, like, I'm having trouble breathing, and all our organs hold different emotions, and lungs hold grief. So I was still
Oh, I didn't
grieving
know that.
the end of my marriage. Yeah. And another thing that you might want to think about is, like, liver holds anger. So when the liver is inflamed or maybe even injured, there might be some anger. So that's why maybe alcoholics would be, angry. There's a lot of
Oh,
anger
yeah.
that's held up. And so your body holds emotions in
That is
different places.
wild.
Yeah. So read the book called The Emotion Code, and research where all your emotions are held. And in the lungs is grief. So I called the Cleveland Clinic. Actually, I live in Cleveland. And I said, "Hey, book me an acupuncture appointment." I explained to the doctor what I was feeling. He's like, "I got you. I got you." I said, "Okay." He's like, "There's one side effect though." He's like, "You might start joy crying, like, uncontrollably." Like, I was like, "Okay."
I'll take it.
I was like, "Let's do this." So sure as shit, after 2 weeks, I had two sessions once a week. I had my first joy cry. I was like, "Wow, this is great." So acupuncture, I went through acupuncture for about 6 months, and I was off antidepressants too. So I not on antidepressants anymore, and I still maintain, acupuncture every 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been awesome. And especially like lifting and the workouts that I do
Yeah.
in CrossFit, like I'll go in there, it's like, dude, I need a double dose.
Right,
My
for sure.
emotions are good, but my back's hurting. Can you get me back here? So so
Oh,
yeah, acupuncture is there, and like that helped me find myself, emotionally, being able to express my emotions. Whereas, and that's the biggest difference between old me and new me, is that I was very regimented and focused on success, and in my masculine only during my marriage. Is that I have a really good flow right now. I can flow in and out of the masculine and the feminine energy. Receiving is a lot easier. Like my programming is pursuing and success, and being assertive and all these things, so that comes easy to me. But now that I'm able to express emotions, like I have a whole
you're
new
like a
side of
unicorn.
me. Yeah, I know. And
How can I support
it's
you?
yes, positive affirmations.
Yeah.
But that's it. And I wasn't in that flow state in my marriage, and if I hadn't gone through what I did, I wouldn't be here and vulnerable with everyone, with the ability to share my experience and teach people and coach people through their experience to get you here. Now I don't have like all the answers, so I'll tell you, I can't acupuncture you. Go get an acupuncturist.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
for
your
sure.
therapist either, so go get a therapist. But I will hold you accountable, because it's so important that you get to this state of flow after you've been through a traumatic event like a breakup or divorce. And that's the biggest difference. Like I have this flow about me and this energy about me that I've never experienced before, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I went through that to get here.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you say, I mean, because you had alluded to the fact that you realize like this is going to a divorce. But then even later, we're like, I was in the biggest depression. So it's based on what you said, like it sounded like the divorce was like, you're like, this has to happen. But even though that was your thoughts, but it still sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that there's like that misconception too, that, well, if you're sad about the divorce, then you didn't want it to happen. And it's not that you're sad about it happening. It's like the identity that you lose. And, it is a traumatic event. Even if you want the divorce to happen, it's still traumatic.
Yeah, for sure. Now I never wanted the divorce to happen, but I was the one to file. Um, I there was no other choice. I was married to someone that didn't want to be married anymore. I'm not,
And it doesn't
and
matter
there
how much
was
work you do, you can't force it.
no, and I tried every love language. She never read the love language book, so I was just throwing darts. I tried every love language. I tried all these things. And I remember doing couples therapy. She just, they recommended it twice, two different therapists, and she never read it. And like, so I didn't know what the hell to do. And when she told me like I don't want to be married anymore, like, all right, I have to file. Like I can't. I, that's it. It takes two to be married,
For sure.
everyone. And my identity and moving forward is still to be a a strong husband. But like whoever gets me next, they're gonna be fucking lucky. I can tell you that, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I know what to do now, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do
It's a
10
better
years
version of
ago.
you.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do 10 years ago, to be married. I was recreating relationships that I witnessed, growing up, and those sorts of things. But now I have these new lessons, that, and not only that I experienced, but the people that I'm around and the people that I'm coached, they teach me too, and they push me, which is a really great place to be in. Um, so yeah, it's an exciting. Even though I didn't want a divorce, I knew I had to do it to be where I'm at now.
Yeah. And you talked about the love. And
Yeah.
I mean, because you've done reels about it too. And, I love your reels. The ones that are funny are so funny, but the ones that are serious are serious, but they're like, they have a really good message about it. And you've talked about, I'm blanking now on like the something love. The
Unconditional love.
no, not unconditional. It's
The love you deserve. That
No,
sort
you
of
talk
stuff.
about like it's like a love that you've kind of like unleashed. I can't think of what you've called it. I mean, because you've mentioned
Ooh,
it
I
on
should
here
do a
too.
reel on unleashing love.
I know,
I
yeah, you
like
should. Come to me for all of your content ideas. Um,
yes.
but it's about like feeling like a pure, like genuine, just like letting it flow kind of love and just and not having like that militantness that you were talking about. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. But again, it comes on the back of work and work that's
Mm-hmm.
not pretty. And not that everyone wants to do it or you don't think that it's necessarily worth it, but getting to the other side, like you had talked about at the very beginning, and you don't even have to be all the way through the forest. You could be halfway through the forest and see that the trees are like less dense and be like, wow, I'm actually making progress, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making progress. You watch your progress, because if you're not monitoring your progress, you'll never feel it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's very important when you're working with a coach, to talk about your progress. And I'll check up on my clients and talk about how do you feel about your progress. And
I do too.
that
Yeah.
that's a call out, by the way. Like I'll call you out. Like, okay, I don't feel like that. A lot of them say, I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I went. Like, all right, let's reflect on it. Where did you start, and how do you feel now about this? And like, oh, okay, I see where. So that's something else I coach people on, is being aware of your progress, because that's so important to build that confidence that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And having the accountability. I do the same thing. Like the people that I've coached, I will check back in with them. Like, how are things going? And typically, if I haven't heard from them, even if like our coaching sessions are done, like I'll follow up with them, like just because I actually care. Like, I want you to do well because I know how much it sucks. Hey, how are things going? And if they've been quiet, it's very telling to me. There's a reason why you haven't
Mm-hmm.
talked to me, because they're like, oh, shit, like I don't want to tell you what it's actually like. I've slipped back into my old habits because it's easy
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's easier to do that.
I get
Thank
that too.
you.
But that's why we're here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've eaten up a bunch of your time, but thank you so much. So, just a recap, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, look, Instagram is my favorite.
Yeah.
So find me on Instagram. My name's Daren Douglas, Daren. My handle is Husband's Diary with Daren, and I'm on TikTok too, as Daren Douglas. But it's all the same content. I'm more likely to respond on Instagram than anything, and there's a link to my book in my Instagram profile, so you can purchase that as well. And I just started a coaching workshop last weekend. Yeah, I do one monthly, which focuses on a lot of the things that we talked about. So it would be great to have you.
Thank you for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything resonated or was helpful, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm at Alicia Crasco on Instagram. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and review, I would greatly appreciate it. When you find yourself struggling in your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support, or a lot more support, without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community. It's a private off-social media community for stepmoms, and you get to connect with me and other stepmoms from around the world. I hold weekly office hours and have monthly group coaching. It's kind of like having a personal coach in your back pocket, again, without that hefty price tag. To find out more and to join, head to aliciacrasco.com/community. Chat to you next week.